What's up, Recovered on Purpose family? I'm super excited that you're here for this week's episode of Guest Saturdays. I have a super exciting guest to bring to you, Scott Carpenter, and we're going to be talking about health, mindset, and how you can implement this into your recovery. Love you guys so much. Enjoy the show and keep living Recovered on Purpose. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose. Welcome, everybody. Super excited that you're here. Go ahead and let us know in the comments if you're watching this live or on the replay. Let us know where you're coming in from. And guys, I have a super exciting guest for you. His name is Scott Carpenter, and he is a best-selling author and multiple seven-figure fitness business owner. He owns 6 personal training studios in the U.S. and Canada and is the founder of the 63-Day Transformation Program. Now, Scott spends the majority of his time on his passion project, helping other gym owners, personal trainers, and online coaches achieve multiple 6-figure incomes by creating and selling high-ticket transformation programs inside their businesses at PT Legends. You can find his books at CoachScottCarpenter.com, his coaching company at PTLegends.com, and connect with him on Instagram at Coach Scott Carpenter. Love you guys. And guys, without further ado, Scott Carpenter. What's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here.
Man, I'm doing amazing. It is it's a beautiful life, brother. There's so much to do in it. So much to do.
There is. Man, I was just watching the videos of your story. It's just incredible, man. Just incredible.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. What did you get from watching the videos as someone that isn't necessarily like in recovery, right? Or someone that's an addict suffering? And that's actually interesting to me. What did you get from watching someone that has that story?
You know, while I haven't had experience with, as you know, I did have my fair share of alcohol problems when I was in my 20s. Nothing that was like life-threatening or anything like that. But it is so easy for lives to take a fork in the road.
Yeah. And
where people fall on hard times or make a wrong decision or whatever it is. But I've seen so many stories of people who learn from that and change, and they don't get sucked into the guilt and everything that goes down there. And God is the most inspiring thing in the world to see an underdog, to see somebody who has life stacked against them and to make all the mistakes and then just saying, I'm going to change things. And they build a whole nother life for themselves. Like, it's the most inspiring thing. Like, that's the stuff that makes me tear up all the time. Like, I was watching that and I was like tearing up.
Yeah. I appreciate
which
that,
is
man.
easy for me to do now since I'm a dad. I don't know what happens when you become a dad, but like, you can watch a commercial of a child getting bullied and like, you'll just start crying. It's
right.
Embarrassing.
I get that. Yeah. And actually, and the reason why I asked that, I haven't had the opportunity to ask somebody that wasn't really in addiction or recovery, but about 47% of American adults have someone in their life right now that they love. Like, not just someone they know, not just a random friend or something, but someone they love that is struggling with addiction or alcoholism. And with that, you know, the whole brand, Recovered on Purpose, what we do is we share our stories. We share them publicly. We get them out there because literally every time you share your story, there's a 50% chance that that person will be impacted of it, you know, with someone in their life. So that's why we're, you know, getting more and more people telling their stories. So, and you're here to add value and teach us some things about, you know, health, mindset, personal development. Why is it that you got into this space specifically? What about your life and your history got you in this space?
Well, that's a good question. And then, you know, even when you say, well, you haven't been in recovery, not formal recovery, but if I look, it makes me think, you know, because when I look back on my life in my 20s, I was really sad. And I did just spend it drinking to the point where, yeah, you're blacking out a lot. Now, thankfully, nothing bad happened, you know, in terms of like, I didn't get, you know, in a huge car accident or this or that. But when I look back, no, I did have alcohol problems, you know, and it makes me really think hard about that. But what got me into it is, you know, I grew up in your normal suburban neighborhood with all those kind of advantages that it affords you. And it's just like, you get good grades and you get into a good school, and then you get a nice stable job with a big company, and then you just wait to die. That was kind of the path that was laid out. That's not
Yep.
me though. And I started that, I was a straight A student and I got into U of I, and I did those things and I graduated. I started working for, of all places, Philip Morris, right? Big tobacco. Because my idea of success as a 21-year-old grad was making more money than my friends.
Yep.
And I got into that and like, cool, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm getting set up for this and I have it. And I was massively unhappy. Hated my job. Hated what I was doing. I hated where I was living. And as a result, what I did, I just got completely bombed on the weekends. And then, sometimes you go out in the weekday and it would interfere with my work. I nearly got, when I look back on it, and this is stuff I don't reflect on maybe enough, Adam, but there was a time I nearly got fired. And it was so hard for me to get my butt up and go into work because I worked a lot in a territory. So I only had to work with people maybe 2 to 4 days a month.
Yep.
And for a period, I was getting really depressed, which I didn't know at the time, until I look back on it, and I stopped going into work. But what happened was I realized like I'm really unhappy at some point.
Yep.
And I went out to Arizona to visit a friend, and there's sunshine, right? As opposed to it being overcast forever around Chicago, right? There's sunshine and palm trees. And I call that my quarter life crisis because I'm looking at my career and my life and where it's going. And I know I'm just going to keep doing this crap, and never be happy. And so I just said, that's it. I'm quitting my job and I'm moving across the country where I literally knew one person who was actually moving somewhere else in a few months. But I'm quitting my job because I hate it. And I'm moving because I hate where I live. And I'm going to restart my life because I hate it where it's going right now.
Yeah. And so you said, a lot of people have that also. And some of us in recovery, and this happened to me where I got to a point where I was making more money than I'd ever made. I, had the new car and the new apartment and things were going really great in that department, but I found myself really sad and depressed also. What do you think it was that, like specifically was making you depressed with that career, with that trajectory of life? If that was what you were taught was success, you got the straight A's, you went to school, you got this job. What was it that was causing that, depression? What was missing?
God, that's a really good question. I think I just lacked purpose. At the end of the day, in my job, my role, I didn't feel I was having an impact at all. I didn't have a purpose. It didn't really matter if I did that job or not. And I think I had these expectations for my life and I think it has to do with something about our age and how we grew up in the expectations, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I had these, grandiose ideas for my life and I saw none of them coming true anywhere. Right. I think that was a big piece of it. I also think that I closed myself off to close relationships just because I'd gotten burned. I had a really big problem being vulnerable at any stage in the game. And maybe some of that was how I was raised. You just don't really show weakness. Yeah. And I think that's a big problem with men.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And not knowing the answers, not having the answers, being afraid to ask questions. And all of that, I think, contributed to it. I just didn't know where to go. I had no one to turn to. I felt right. Yeah. And so I didn't talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah. And so you take the leap, which is it's a scary thing to do, but it's an awesome thing to do. And it's just like skydiving. I remember, Will Smith says this, but it's like, it's so real when you're getting ready to skydive and you have that feeling of fear, that anxiety, like you're so high up. And then once you jump, you just have this incredible bliss, like the best feeling you've ever had as you're falling, right? So you jump, you move away from Chicago and you move to where?
I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona.
Scottsdale, Arizona. And what'd you start doing? What'd you find on this jump?
Yeah. So, I attended like a little career transition workshop thing by a neighbor's dad that I knew and stuff like that. And so I was looking for jobs, but at the end of the day, like I'm going regardless. And I wanted something that I actually wanted to do. And I've been taught, oh, you just do this white collar thing and then you move up the ladder, and God, that was so freaking boring to me. And I just, especially because I work for a big corporation, it's just not my culture. It's not my cup of tea. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. But then, so the saving grace of everything throughout the period of these lost 4 years of my life, where it's just floating and just basically being destructive, was I got into health and fitness. So I started working out. I really started changing my body. I was looking at forums and this and that, and I was really devoted and dedicated. And I made some big physical transformations. And I think that's what kept me from really going the other way.
Yeah.
And so when I'm like, I'm changing my life, I can see where it's going and I'm going to hate it. So yeah, I moved out and then I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do forever, but why don't I do something that I'm passionate about? And health and fitness was the saving grace for me throughout this whole thing. So I said, hey, let me get certified. So I got certified through National Academy of Sports Medicine, and let me find a way to make a living. So I did some interviews. I started working for a big box gym. And that's where I restarted things. But you're right. It was that moment of bliss. I drove out in my car that I bought for like $3,900. I loaded, the dog in the car, my earthly possessions, and I just moved out with very little money to spare. And I'm just like, I'm doing it. But that was the most epic trip ever, just because of that. You're exactly right.
Yeah. That feeling of like, I'm going, I don't really care. I'm jumping. Right.
Yep.
And do you think that, we were talking a little bit about purpose, right? There was a missing purpose. And before this, you weren't really like super into fitness, super into health yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you started getting into it, did it seem like that was building a purpose? Did you notice it building a purpose at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause working, it was a form of working on myself and improving myself.
Yeah.
And that I had 100% control over. Right. As opposed to your career, which you might get passed over for the promotion. You might not get noticed, this and that. Like I could go in there and improve upon myself, and put in the reps on it. And that is so important because that victim mentality can really creep in.
Yeah.
It can really creep in. But you know what? You can control whether you do a few squats today or a few push-ups today. You have 100% control over that. Anybody can do that. That is what kept me ticking along.
Yeah. So you start focusing on, instead of focusing on like a job and a corporate thing, what you can control is your own personal development.
Yep.
Man, that's never come out like that. I love that. I tell people to imagine you're standing inside of a hula hoop. There's a hula hoop on the ground. You're standing inside of it. Everything inside of that hula hoop, we are in control of. Everything outside of it, we're not in control of, right? Our thoughts, emotions, actions, everything that we do, we're in control of. But thinking that our personal development is basically all we're in control of, that really gives us a power to start chasing at it, right?
Absolutely.
So what else were you noticing in your personal development journey because I know that now that you're coaching, you're not just doing PT, you're not just doing the physical part of it. So in this time, what else were you growing within yourself and learning within yourself?
So I realized how much I ran from my problems. And if anybody can look back at some of their biggest problems, a lot of it was because they didn't address it early on. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's so funny that you're talking about these things because I'm a person who has never shared things, right, that much. I'm learning to do it now. And I've had to learn to be vulnerable, and I've only really gotten good at it over the last several years. And I'm 39, right? Some of the things that we're compiling is I did have like a rental property. This was back before the big crash, like in 2008, 9, right? So I graduated college in 2004, and I acquired like 2 rental properties, and we know what happened to the market there.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to pay some of the mortgages because the rent was all this kind of stuff. And I at that point, I had actually destroyed my credit and lost a couple houses. And it's so funny because some of the stuff I've just blocked out of my memory. And so this is actually very therapeutic. I appreciate you having me on here. And I've never shared these stories to anybody either.
Wow.
Why? Because I felt like a massive failure. And so, and then what happened, like I stopped like opening the mail because I just know it was bills and notices. And I just pretended it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I remember even like I had my power shut off at my main house in Illinois,
Wow.
and because I didn't open the damn mail and pay the bill.
Wow.
And yeah, this is I'm having a lot of revelations now to realize
I
how
appreciate it. Yeah.
terrible a situation I was actually in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when I started doing that, and then I moved. I'm like, I'm changing my life, and I hit this certain point, and I had a little bit of money in a 401k that got dumped in from a bonus. I had to get that out to pay while I was starting to make money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I had like this stack of mail still that was piling up at my new address. And then I remember, I'm like, I just decided to take care of it and look at all the lawsuits and the bills and this and that. And I had to go to the post office because they stopped delivering it once that mailbox gets so full you don't get it. And
Yeah.
I had like, it was like 2 boxes of freaking mail. And I'm like, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off of this bitch. Excuse me if I didn't ask about swearing policies, but it's obviously really, yeah, it was really impactful to me, but I did it, and I opened them all up, and I looked at what I owed, and I looked at all these unopened things. I'm going to solve these things one at a time. And I worked really hard my job. I got promoted a couple times. I paid down all the debt. Took me a long time. My credit's back at 800, but it was, for 7 years, you can't get anything. And it was really scary. It was really hard to make ends meet and pay those things down.
Yeah.
But I did it,
Amen. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I hear you saying you're talking about like a breaking point or this point where like, you just have to do something about it. You have to do something about it. And you said you decided to rip the Band-Aid off, right? This decision. And when you made that decision, and I'm leading you with this, did you feel when you made the decision before you even started, did you feel a change within yourself because we can look at this box of mail, right? This box of problems that we have that we're just like pushing away. We're just leaving behind. We're just throwing them under the bed or whatever. And we can look at them like that. And then when we make that decision, like, okay, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. There's like, did you have a freedom once you made that decision?
Oh, completely. Completely. And it goes through my head. I think, God, who talks about this? I think maybe it was like Tony Robbins talks about, like, a lot of times it's we got those 2 main drives, and it's avoiding pain or seeking pleasure. And a lot of times avoiding pain is what we spend a lot of time doing.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go to seeking the pleasure, which is drinking, drugs, you name it, to avoid that pain.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that stack was so painful to try and attempt to handle that you just avoid it. At a certain point, there's a threshold where the pain of not doing it becomes greater than the pain of doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the point that I reached. And then, but once you decide to rip off that Band-Aid, even though it's painful to do it and you're attacking it head on, you're looking at, wow, I've got years of bills to pay here. This is going to be hard.
Yeah.
There was this semblance of I felt immediately better. Immediately better. And I started listing my debts and how much I owed on this card and this and that and the other. And I just started knocking them down. I had a spreadsheet, and every time I would pay a bill and reduce a balance or whatever, I would take that down. And I could see my progress, month after month, month after month, month after month. Yeah. And that is what kind of kept me going. And that's another form of self-improvement. I looked at that amazing debt that I had accumulated and chipping away at it. But just from opening the mail and organizing it, God, that felt so good.
Yeah.
You think it would be horrifying.
Yes.
But it was the thought of it that was so much harder than the actual doing it.
Exactly. Fear is something that is so up here, right? The fear and the pain of opening that stuff, of dealing with these problems. Like, I talk to people about, if they want to build their credit or something and they've been avoiding it, they're like, it's just something I don't do. I just don't worry about that because my credit is bad, and that's just like what they say. But then in reality, if you just do a free credit report, and you look at the negative items and then you look at your history, like, you can actually put a very simple plan together to build your credit. I started my recovery with a 421 credit score. I'm up at like I'm not quite at 800, but I'm up at like 783 right now. And
Yes.
that's like, that's a big deal. You know,
It's
that's
a
a big
big
deal.
deal.
But I can tell you, it was very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It was very simple.
And that's what I did. It's just, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
The bottom line is I have these goals in life and I'm going to do this. So I start researching the best ways to tackle it. I'm researching, can I get this removed? I sent a couple letters, get a couple things removed. I started paying this stuff off. It's not that hard. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just that delay, put it off because it's painful, put it off. But it is more just the thought of it. We create that in our heads. And that's what people listening have to realize, that it's really not that hard to do it. It's so much more work to convince yourself not to do it. It really is. And I know that might be on a subconscious level, but regardless of anything, make no mistake, you're putting in the work.
Yeah.
You're putting in the work, deceiving yourself, convincing yourself that it's not that big of a deal, or convincing yourself that you're going to do it later. Whatever. You are putting in the work and the reps now, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, 100. And there's I say choose your hard. I don't remember where I heard this, but I talk about this all the time. And like, it's hard to have bad credit. It's hard to, not open up the bills. That's hard. It's also hard to become aware of your financial situation, become aware of your health situation, become aware of, something that you want to change, and then doing the steps to change it. They're both hard, but one of them is actually extremely rewarding. It's extremely rewarding to, work on yourself. We can look at this in every single different aspect of our life. We can look at it in relationships. We can look at it in career. We can look at it in finances. We can look at it in health and fitness, right? In order to make a change in our life, we have to first become aware of the actual problems. We have to, write them out, put them out on a journal, put them out on a whiteboard, something, because if we don't know where we're at, we can't go to a destination because we can't figure out the journey there, right? So, and during this time, is this also while you're building a brand new career and brand new business?
Oh yeah. Because I started working for Lifetime, and it's a commission job, right? Yeah. Personal training, when you got to sign them up and you got to train them. So like, I was barely making ends meet for quite a while, and then figuring that out and trying to become successful. And I kept my bills low so I could handle all that. And then, once I got to a pretty comfortable spot where like, okay, I've made awesome progress on this and blah, blah, blah. That's when I decided like, what I'm doing isn't fulfilling enough. Like, I don't want to keep doing it in this career, and I want to do it myself, because I don't care about giving workouts and counting reps and maybe handing out a macro plan. I want to change other people's lives.
Yeah.
Fitness is probably, looking back on it, what saved my life from taking a really bad turn.
Yeah.
And it was so transformative, and it's so important to live your best quality of life that's what I wanted to do for other people. Yeah. That's what it was. Like, I want to take this gift and give it to other people. And it became so much about the sales and the business side of things, which is important, right? Businesses have to make money or else they don't exist. Yeah. But, when it got to the point where we're selling these ancillaries and I don't believe in them, and, this needs to be more of a coaching thing. This needs to be more of a mentorship thing, right? We got to get the mindset first, then we can change the habits, and we're also going to change your environment so it's easier. It didn't exist. So I had to go out and build it. So that's when I took the leap. I got my income up where I was making around 90. And then I said goodbye to that. I bought through clever financing, even though it wasn't worth that much because it was losing money. But I bought a business that was losing money. I basically bought a 2,100 square foot box with some equipment in there and like 5 clients. But I was willing to take that risk, and then that was really scary for a period of years.
Yeah. All right. So you said you want to give the gift, right? And that's exactly what we talk about here also, right? Because I don't know if you had the vision that you would end up being a, 2 Comma Club member with ClickFunnels, and that you'd be, you'd have 6 different locations and all this kind of stuff. I don't know if you had that at the very beginning, but you had a purpose, right? You had this thing within your heart that you you were you experiencing this own transformation in your own life. You're experiencing this personal development. You were experiencing it through health and fitness. And your focus was you wanted to figure out how to give that to people, right? And
Exactly.
that's, I had the opportunity, I'm just going to hop in this really quick, but I had the opportunity over the last 12 months to sit and talk with 3 different billionaires. And all 3 of them, when I talked to them, they had that exact same start to their businesses. Like, I was able to sit and talk to the man that owns the largest cell phone company in India. And now they're in like 27 different countries with like 28,000 employees. And he said, I wasn't planning on it being this big. I knew it could be, but I just wanted to get cell phones to the poor. I wanted the poor to have access to cell phones. And that's where his heart was. And then it just blew up into this thing, right? So I think it's beautiful that, we find this purpose, right? And in recovery, and what I try to tell everybody in this community here is that when we're in recovery, it's our responsibility. It is our duty to go out and help addicts that are still struggling. We have this, like, we've been given this gift of recovery. A lot of us shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here, and it's our responsibility to do it. So how does this start growing from there when you start having the clients, you buy this gym, and how do you start getting new clients? How do you start, like, getting this heart into your mission?
Yeah. Oh, God, that's a complicated answer. But to touch on your point, like, it's got to be in here. It's got to be in your heart. You know what I mean? And if you have that calling, you've just got to do it. And it might be so unclear about how.
Yeah.
You might feel very insecure about everything, but like, if you just don't give up, you will do it. And your purpose can change. You might not have this whole huge idea of purpose. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think I'd have 6 gyms and this and that, you know what I mean? But if you just keep taking action, you'll discover it. And that purpose might change, because at first it was like helping these, the end users and these people, like, achieve fitness and live their best lives. That's really what it was about. But I had also been through a lot of hell as a gym owner, a lot of scary moments, right? I did have somebody that completely burned down a location with his actions, who just really misrepresented who he was and did some horrible things. And I was convinced he was fundamentally a good person who went through some bad experiences recently. And I let him go to another location where I was working. And I went back there to raise this thing from the ashes, because he was, without getting into too much details, he was sleeping with a female personal trainer, messing with her head. And then she was good friends with the lead coach there. He had also had, some issues with alcohol as well. So I got him to go with the other location, and I had forced him to get help. Addiction recovery isn't my specialty, but it forced him to get help and stuff like that. Talk to his family about it. So I did everything I could. He did the same thing with the female trainer over there. And then just everybody left. So I have 2 locations that are hemorrhaging cash, and I have to totally rebuild.
Yep.
This happened when I was, when I just had my firstborn son too. So it was massively stressful, massively stressful. It can be a tough journey. It can be a really tough journey. But the cool thing is I worked hard. I caught some breaks. I didn't let any of those experiences jade me. You know what I mean? And you give people the benefit of the doubt. And the people, my people got me through it, like, who are now my partners, right?
Yeah.
One of which I mentioned to you had struggled when he was earlier. He spent 5 years in jail, I believe it was.
Wow.
Drug stuff when he was younger, and he's a totally different person now. It's an unbelievable story. But anyways, like, I got through it. And so a lot of my purpose now, with the whole sign you see back there with PT Legends, is I figured out a lot of things in the gym space. It took me a lot of years, but I eventually succeeded, and I found out some really amazing stuff. And now I spend my time helping other gym owners who are struggling achieve the businesses of their dreams. And so my purpose has shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So if you don't, my point is that if you don't have everything figured out right now, that's okay. Your purpose is going to change. what you think, like, you don't have to worry about like your end all be all necessarily. You might get lucky and know that, but that
Yeah.
purpose could change throughout life.
Yeah.
And I think purpose, that's the word I use a lot for men. Men don't do well without a purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it even when people retire sometimes and they don't do anything then. You know, a lot of them don't do very well and don't live very long.
Right. Or they go back to work.
Or they go back to work. Yeah.
Like I was retired for 3 months. Didn't want to.
Yeah. Because retirement, like I got to the point where a few years ago, like probably 3 years ago, I was like functionally retired. My gyms run without me. I can run them in 2 hours a week. But guess what? Anybody would kill you in my position in the gym business, right?
Yeah.
But I was so unhappy then because I was just lost. I really wasn't working on building anything, or you know what I mean? I didn't have that purpose.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we need that. And it's really all about, I think retirement's overrated, right? And because I see money as an exchange of value, right? The more value I give to other people, I can promise you at some point that's coming back in the form of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter. And it may or may not. But the point is you can completely work for free, but you need to give value out into the world.
Yeah.
And even when I'm retired, quote unquote retired, I'm still going to deliver value.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to be doing a nonprofit. I'm going to be doing mentorship for young men or business owners or whatever it is, because I have to do that. It gives me purpose.
Yeah. 100%. And you said something, you know, when you're seeking your purpose, right? And you're going at your purpose, your original purpose was to, you know, you wanted to give this gift of health and fitness to other people. And as your purpose was changing, I think it just grew. I don't know if it necessarily changed.
You're totally right.
Because now instead of like one-on-one helping people with this, you've grown something that is actually, now it's self-operating and people are getting health and fitness from what you've built. So your purpose is actually being fulfilled and grown, because that's been my experience. You know,
Yes.
At first I just wanted to help addicts. I wanted to help them one-on-one and find as many as I could sponsor and this and that. But then it was like, okay, I want to help more. I want to help more people with this. How do I do this? Okay, it's social media and stuff like that. And guys, we're going to take a quick 30-second break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about performance, purpose, and mindset, and how to implement all this into your life. Be right back. What's up, family? I hope you're enjoying this episode as much as I do when I'm making them. And guys, if you are getting value from this, if you've heard any golden nuggets that you think other people should hear, make sure that you're sharing it with your groups or your pages so other people that are looking for a message of hope are able to find it. Also, in case you weren't here for the beginning of the show, if you have a recovery story and you want to learn how to add impact and income through sharing it, follow the link in the pinned comment to book your one-time 100% free call with me, where we're going to strategize exactly how you can share your story and do just that. Enjoy the rest of the show. Keep living recovered on purpose. All right. Amen. Gotta throw in the interrupter commercial.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you, brother. I'm doing this. I'm doing a course, and I'm coaching people in recovery how to build stages like this, how to get on stages like this, and how to share their story powerfully. You know,
amazing. You're right.
Brother.
You look back, it is a gift.
Yeah.
You know, that you have a responsibility to share. If you have a story like this, you're going to save lives. Period. You have a responsibility. 100%. And just love your experiences. Like when I look back at the worst things that ever happened in my life, the worst things that ever happened ended up over time being the absolute best things that ever happened to me.
Yes.
And my partner, right, who owns a location with me, he says the same thing. He said, going to jail saved my life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah.
And you said something before we started recording about him. You said that, you know, you work with him, and I'll let you repeat it. What do you think about that guy that did 5 years in jail and was an addict?
Oh, I trust him more than anyone. And I know the route is hard for anybody who has been to jail or had these things or had these infractions on your record. I know the road to employment can be more challenging. I know that it's probably far easier for you to slip into it and give up, because let's face it, you want to get like a white collar job, they're running background checks. It's there.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that. I think that's crap.
Yeah.
And that does not prevent me as an employer. And like anybody can change who they are any damn time they want.
Yes.
They can.
100%.
Absolutely. And, I go so far with this guy where now, so he then bought into the gym and he's my partner,
Yeah.
right? Because he ran it. And then I'm like, we got to do this, right? Now he's building wealth as an equity partner. It's unbelievable. And it's so cool. Does it present some challenges? Yeah, because here's the thing. We're in a strip mall. I wanted to buy the building across the street, right? Owning a commercial building is an amazing wealth building tool.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. I could get an amazing SBA 504 loan, super low interest rate. It doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
But guess what? With his record, can't happen.
Yeah.
So
I dealt with that.
I think that's crap.
It is.
So I
100%.
did my things to find ways around it, and he still owns his percentage in that building. That's how much I believe in this guy, to the point where it's not like, well, sorry, looks like I can only own it. I said, no, that's crap. We're going to find loopholes. We're going to find ways around this. And we did it anyways. That's how much I believe in this guy.
Amen. And guys, that goes to show, we do have something to, I hate saying it, but we do have something to prove to the world. We do have something to prove. We're not just these addicts that got clean and now we just don't use drugs, right? We don't need to be looked at as these broken pieces of human, because we're not. We have recovered from something that most people can't even understand how hard it is. And we have become to be reliant on a power greater than ourselves, on God, in a way that most people will never be able to grasp onto, because it was like a necessity for us. And we have a responsibility to live a life that shows this, that proves this, that shows that we're not just these people from our past, because we're not, right? And there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there like Scott that want to not only give us a chance, but know that we're trustworthy. It's like part of our program. Like we literally can't be liars, or else we'll probably relapse, right? So that's awesome, brother. So your program now, let's skip beat into the program now. And, you said that you work on mindset first and then going into the physical. Why is that?
It's because, listeners out there, you've tried to get in shape. Everybody's tried to get in shape or follow a diet, and you can get out. People do it for 4 to 8 weeks typically, and then it's just done, right? Motivation comes and goes. You can't always 100% control your motivation. Some days and weeks I got it. Some days I just don't.
Yep.
That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you, but it kind of comes down to that purpose. If you have purpose behind it, you can stick to something. You can overcome amazing odds. You can put up with a lot of pain to do what you need to do, right? And so we have to start with mindset. Otherwise, they're going to do it for a few weeks and that's it. And guess what? They're going to come back next year, 9 months later. January rolls around. They're motivated again. They'll do it and then they'll stop. Rinse and repeat for years, decades. We see this over and over and over. And I've tried so many different approaches over the years, right? Some people get it. Small percentage of people will achieve that true transformation, which is not just the external stuff, guys. It's not just, oh, I lost the 30 pounds or I'm stronger, I have more energy. Those are all good things. But that external achievement is good, but we want that internal transformation, changing who you are. You are somebody who works out 3 times a week because that's how you're going to live your best life. You are somebody who eats well 80 to 90% of the time because you're going to live a long life and be there for your kids, right? You change. That internal transformation is what we truly want. My whole thing has been built around trying to make that the best transformation we possibly can. It had the highest rates of success. It starts with mindset. So an example of how we do that, Adam, is we need to get to the real reason. People always come to us. They're like, okay, well, I'm out of shape, kind of feel crappy about myself. So I need to work out. Find a place, they'll call us up, right? And people just ask, how much is it, right? What time's your things? All they think is I have to work out.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Working out 3 times a week is the easy part. The hard part is the 165 other hours in the week that you're not in our gym, right? That's the hard part. And And from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, you're faced with willpower decisions. So we have to have that purpose.
Yeah.
So we start digging, and we call it that bleeding neck issue, right? Everybody wants to come in and get a Band-Aid. Oh, just tell me exactly what I need to eat. Well, there's a problem with that. I can give you an exact diet, but guess what? How long are you going to do that for?
Yeah.
You're not set up for success ever.
Right.
Right. So we have to teach you how to do this the right way. And in order for you to stick with it and be willing to change your habits, which is difficult, habits are really hard to change. We have to tie it to a greater purpose. And we call that the bleeding neck issue that we have to get to. And, it's different for everybody. But at the end of the day, it's, how is this showing up and preventing you from living your best life?
Give us an example of this. Like, what are you talking about with something that could be this bleeding neck?
So take, for instance, maybe this, it's an actual guy. I won't say his name, but like he wanted to lose 40 pounds. Okay. But when we dig into it and see how it's impacting his life, ask him some uncomfortable questions, right? He thinks about this every single day, multiple times a day.
Wow.
He has skipped out on parties and get-togethers because he's ashamed of how he looks and how much he's gained weight, right? Yeah. He has low energy. He feels like, his words, a slob, right? And it's basically it's a self-esteem thing, right? Yeah. And it translates to many areas of his life where he doesn't feel confident showing up as in his work.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like he can keep up with his kids, and he doesn't feel like he's a good father. Like, it's translating everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we really realize, like, okay, it's not just about losing 30 pounds. It's about really becoming the man that you want to be.
Yeah.
And that is such a huge thing. Now, once just what you said earlier, you got to find out the real reason. You know what I mean? You got to find out where you're really at right now and confront that.
Yeah.
Only then are you really open up to making that lasting change and doing things right.
Yeah.
So people aren't that malleable with their habits until we kind of talk about the difficult issues and address them. Then they're dedicated. And you're going to have those days where you just don't want to, but you know what? You tie to that greater purpose. I want to be there for my kids. I want to be, I don't want to go down like my father did and have a heart attack at 50, 59.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have that greater purpose. Okay. I'll get my butt to the gym. Okay. You know what? I'm only going to have that dessert on the weekends. Right.
Yeah.
You're more likely to make that better choice and change your habits over the long run.
Yeah. And I heard this, we were talking a little bit about the pain and the pleasure motivators. And Tony Robbins does talk about, the pain is actually usually a better motivator than seeking the pleasure. Right. Then I heard this other thing that during this conversation, I just thought of putting them together, but there's a certain way of setting goals or motivating ourselves towards our goals, which is called the if I then goal setting. So if I, go to the gym 3 days a week and eat healthy, I then will be able to hang out with my kids, go to these events and not feel like a slob, and write these things down. And then if I don't go to the gym and I don't start eating healthy, then I will never be able to go to these events and not feel like a slob. I'll never be able to, and then add all this pain that happens to if we don't, right? And then we're going to be like, okay, well, choose my hard. Choose my hard. Do I want to get up and go to the gym 3 days a week and eat healthy and have a conversation with Scott once a week? Or do I want to, suffer and think about how slobby I am for a while, and then possibly have a heart attack like my dad, And if you're out there and you're listening to this right now, try this out for yourself. Try this out for yourself. What is it that thing that's sitting in your mind right now or sitting in your heart that you want to do, that you want to change about your life right now? If it's health, perfect. Do it for that. If it's, you want to get out and do this hobby that you've wanted to do. If you have this relationship that you want to build, or you have, you want to talk to your parents more, whatever it is, try the if I then goal setting. If you do that, then what would you get for a reward? And if you don't do that, what would you miss out on? I want you guys to try that. I think it would be I'm going to do that today also.
That's beautiful. And let's tie it all the way back to doing a metaphor. That's your big box of mail, You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
if I tackle this, then I can stop this being on my mind from the minute I wake up to the minute I buy my lunch and money's on my head to the minute I'm driving home from work and they're saying, "Do you have more than $10,000 in credit card debt?"
You're like, I have no
Right?
idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm living with that pain and experience all the time.
Yeah.
Right? If I do that, I can let that weight go. I can that
Mm.
monkey on the back, I can get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. If I become aware of where my credit's at and build it, I can buy a house. If you
Absolutely.
guys have bad credit and you're not working on it, if you buy a car, you're going to spend like 10 or 15% more on a car. If you get the payments and stuff, you're literally going to spend more on everything you ever buy with bad credit. So
Mhm.
I mean, we're just using metaphors, we're using examples. Every single one of us, every human being has something in their life that they want to add or subtract right now in this moment. So take this on for yourself. So now you're working with these guys. The personal development, the mindset is where you start with them, right? So you find out where they're at, you find out, what their motivation is, and then how does that couple into going into the personal training specifically?
Yeah, so like a lot of what we build on it. So we really build out their perfect day and week. Like if you're here, you need to get to here, right? And you need to bridge that gap. What actions do you need to take every day and every week to get there?
Mm,
Right? And so what we end up doing is mapping that out and figuring out what are those key actions that we need to do, and then we track them, right? So for instance, if it's fitness oriented, right? We want daily movement coming in there. We're going to work out 3 times a week, but the other 4 days we want you doing something for 15 to 30 minutes,
yeah.
right? And it could be going for a hike, taking the dog for a walk, doing a little bit of a yoga flow. It doesn't really matter, but it's it's a mental health exercise and making yourself a priority every day because you got
Mm,
work, school, kids, errands, this, that, the other. It's really easy, but you can spend 15 to 30 minutes to make yourself a priority. We
yeah.
build that in there because that's like a meta skill. It's not just extra calorie burn. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we do that. There's the workouts, there's a nutrition strategy that is based on what somebody likes to eat and when they're able to eat with their schedule.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's usually something in there for routine or structure. Right. It's so easy to take your phone and just scroll up and down for a little bit late at night. You're tired the next morning, your willpower's low, you're all off, or just watch that one extra episode on Netflix, just one more, just one more. And then you're setting yourself up for
Cliffhanger.
failure the next day. Nobody's done that before. I've never done that before. Right. So we put in some things for structure and it helps with your productivity everywhere.
Mhm.
What you're doing is learning how to get in control of your life.
Yeah.
You're learning that managing Adam's life is making yourself a priority the cascading effects in every area of your life,
Yeah.
from your weight to your relationships to your job to everything is going to get better. It
Yeah.
is. And then sometimes what we'll do is once we get a good handle on these habits, we'll bring in things from your life, right? Maybe you're in sales and just making those cold calls or whatever it is just grinding. You put it off. But that's the number one thing you could do to be successful in it. If I did this, then that, right?
Yep.
Just what you're talking about. Well, maybe we put on that tracker that I need to make those 10 calls 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And you put it on there so that you're more likely to do it.
Yeah.
So really we build out these habits and quite obviously, quite often they're related to weight loss or muscle gain or something. That being said, it's all about quality of life. And we bring
Yes.
those other things in there. I mean, we've had people quit smoking with this, right?
Yes.
And it's, we do that kind of stuff. So we build out this tracker in what we need to do and how often, how many times per week. And then at the end of the week, we have our mentoring call.
Mm,
We look at the data, we review any measurements, usually like once a month, the overall physical measurements, right? Or whatever it happens to be, whatever we're tracking. But we celebrate the wins, right? Look at what you're doing well, not just where you're screwing up. Very important.
yeah.
Then we look at, hey, where did you struggle? Because everyone's going to struggle. Based on where you struggled, what is one key thing that we can do next week to make it easier, to
Mhm.
reduce the friction? right? It could be like in the instance of weight loss, it could be snacking late at night, right? Okay, well, what if we found less harmful substitutions? Or maybe for that person, after a discussion, maybe it's just like, you know what? I don't even really want to do it anyways. Let's get this thing out of the house so it's not there. Or maybe it's just like, you know what? Let's brush your teeth right after dinner to discourage you from doing that.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, you're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
That's okay. And every week, just reduce that friction to you being able to implement this. So you execute at a high level over time.
Yeah.
And that's how you change your habits, right?
Amen. Man, you said something in there that the language we use is extremely, extremely important. And the language that we understand as we use it is extremely important as well. And there's something about recovery, right? We are living in a selfless way in order to remain recovered. That's in the principles, that's in everything that we learn, that we're constantly out to serve others. So when somebody says making myself priority, a lot of people, and I've made posts about this. I've made posts about making yourself priority, making your life priority, that kind of thing. And a lot of people are like, no, it's priority to, help this person. And guys, the point is, the better you are, the better example you are of living in recovery, the better you're going to be able to serve other people. It's okay to put yourself, your goals, your priorities as the number one priority with God. And I've also had people, it's interesting because I constantly have to explain this stuff, because when I say that I'm putting myself as priority, someone's like, no, God's priority. I'm like, dude, it's the same thing.
The same thing.
It's the same thing. Yeah. Because God is with us. Amen. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then when you are when you're working with them and they are, and they're doing these things and these different things are coming up, right? They're quitting smoking and all that. It's almost like the health and the fitness program and getting this stuff together, it becomes like a bunch of keystone habits, right? These habits that make us, when we're working on one thing, focused on one thing to personally develop, if it's health and fitness, right? Then all of a sudden throughout our days, we start making better decisions on other things. Like maybe you coached him to quit smoking cigarettes, maybe you didn't, but because he was working on his health and fitness with you, he became a new identity that didn't smoke.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. The amount it's so funny because some people will be like, wow, I owe you everything. You've given me a second lease on life. It's like, dude, you did it all. Yes. And a lot of these things we didn't even actually do. We worked on. It's just, again, going back to, we're going to teach you how to make yourself a priority in life, right? And take control over your life of what you can take control of. And that just has this cascading effect. And the relationships get better. They become a better father, right? They start changing other habits. And that's what happens when you make yourself a priority.
Amen.
And again, you can't, just like you said, you can't help other people. You're always going to be held back if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, they have this on airplanes, guys. Every time you board an airplane, you put your mask on before you assist even your kids. Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody. Now you're a liability.
Yeah. Amen. I think those oxygen masks are more so just for comfort. I wish we had oxygen masks out here, bro, when we're going down. Yeah, man, I really, really appreciate you coming on. Really excited to be connected with you. And where can people connect with you? I know I've got the links for your Instagram, for your website and stuff, but are there any programs coming up? Anything happening in your gyms that you want to let people know about?
Yeah. So we, if you're in the Phoenix area, you're in luck. Just shoot me a message on @Coach Scott Carpenter on Instagram, and I'll connect you to the right location. If for whatever reason you're everywhere else, we do work with people virtually. It's the workouts again. We'd either send them to you, you do them based on whether you have a home workout or you have a membership gym, or maybe even workouts with somewhere else. But the whole mentorship side of it, building out your perfect day and week, establishing your purpose, right? And doing the weekly mentoring sessions over Zoom, we do that, right? So if you feel that, if you had questions on that, same thing. Use that at Coach Scott Carpenter. Shoot me a message. Most of my stuff you'll see on there is for what I do with other gym owners, but I'll know who you are if you mention it, and I'll get you connected to the right spot for that.
Amen. Awesome, Scott. Really appreciate you coming, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, we love